Hey everybody, welcome back to the Time Pass podcast. This is your host, Ashika. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. Real quick, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find the link on my website at timepasspodcast.com or in the link in my bio on my Instagram page. Speaking of my Instagram page, give it a follow at timepass_podcast. Check out my Facebook page at timepasspodcast. And check out my TikTok, ashika.lao. And make sure that you are subscribed on your listening platform of choice, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or Spotify. So you guys, I'm super excited because Holi hai. Today is Holi, and it's the day that the show was coming out, and I decided that I really wanted to talk about Holi because it's such a huge festival for the Indian subcontinent as well as the diaspora all around the world. So let me explain Holi a little bit. It's not your color run. It is an actual festival that is celebrated widely in India and around the world. So there's a few different origins as to the meaning behind Holi. The most common one is the Hinduism religious meaning behind it, which was marked by the defeat of a demoness, and it's a long story. the mythology's there, but it was the fall of a demoness and a demon king, and she burned. That her burning was the start of Holi. So most of the time, Holi's a 2-day festival, and it starts with people making giant bonfires and having little religious ceremonies on one night, and then the next day they celebrate by throwing all those colors that you see at the color runs and on TV and in Bollywood movies and things like that. Interestingly enough, the colors actually have meaning. I've heard that each color, like green, red, yellow, it all represents something. So it's not just a hodgepodge of colors thrown out there. Everything's super intentional. Another meaning of Holi is it's a spring festival. It marks the end of winter, the arrival of spring, and it's a celebration of a good spring harvest. Another kind of meaning behind Holi has to do with a different set of gods, of Hindu gods, Radha and Krishna, and a part of the storyline, part of the mythology that happened with them. So Holi has very different meanings to different people depending on how they celebrate it, but what it is Holi is a day that you rid yourself of any sins, any feelings of guilt. It's kind of like a day where you make up with people that you've been angry with. It's a day where all's kind of forgiven and forgotten. And it's kind of nice. And I think that's why it's so widely celebrated, along with the different origins that I mentioned. But one thing to take note of is on the Indian subcontinent and even in the diaspora here and UK, Fiji, Australia, Canada, Holi is actually celebrated across religions. So it's celebrated by Muslims, it's celebrated by Sikhs, it's celebrated by Hindus, it's celebrated by Jains. It really is a holiday that sort of unifies the subcontinent and those of us that are from the diaspora. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing, right? Because, I mean, especially now, looking at the everything that's going on in India with the protests, to have something that can unify people when there's such unrest due to the farmers' protests and their demands not being met due to the unfair farming laws, I just, it's going to be sad because I don't think Holi will be celebrated in that way. I'm interested to see. But normally, Holi is celebrated in great, splendor in India. And I talk about this because in 2019, so 2 years ago, I was actually in India for Holi. And I got to see it firsthand. Now, if you see in the Bollywood movies and on TV is just a fraction of how Holi is actually celebrated in India. I mean, I made one mistake. That was my very first trip to India, and I wanted to be there for Holi. I intentionally planned it that way. However, I got my dates screwed up, and it ended up being a travel day for me. So we woke up, we were in Agra. We woke up, it was me and my mom, and we had to get ready to catch a plane. And what I found is, so the bonfires happen, because Holi's a 2-day festival, so the bonfires happen the night before. It marks kind of the start of Holi. And then the next morning in India, Holi, like throwing the colors and all that stuff, it happens in the morning. Nobody does that at night. It all happens in the morning. And I thought that I was catching a morning flight and that when I would get to my destination in Jaipur, I would still have time to kind of play Holi and really experience Holi in India. I was mistaken. However, so my mom and I got ready and we go down, we get in our car and we're headed to the Agra airport. And Agra is a small town. I went there obviously to see the Taj Mahal, but the airport there is really small and it's pretty much a military airport. That's what they use it for. So getting into it was a little shady, not shady, but it's like kind of high security, you know? So getting into it, you know that they just don't let anybody in. But then we get there and we're about to walk in and there's like nobody there because it's literally on a military base. And we get there and we see like little kids playing Holi like out in front of the airport. And at this point we had already spoken to people and they're like, yeah, most of people play Holi in the morning. And we're like, oh man, we're gonna miss it. Hopefully we get to Jaipur in time and we'll have time to play Holi. And so there was this soldier, a female soldier, and she was the one that was standing at the door to get inside the airport. And, you know, we walked up, and I'm a friendly person, and so is my mom, and she's like, hey, happy Holi, you know, and we're showing her all our paperwork and getting in. And she's like, yeah, happy Holi. And then we're like, oh, you know, so are you not going to play Holi? I think my mom asked her, and she's like, oh, no, I already did. I played with my kids and my husband, and then I had to come, and I'm in uniform, and I'm at work. And we're like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to get a chance to play Holi because, you know, we got stuck taking this flight. And by the time we get to Jaipur, I think it's going to be over. And there were kids playing Holi on the base, right? Just a little bit away because there's barracks there, people live there. And so she calls this little boy and he's covered in like stuff. And he's like, hey, take them to go play Holi. And it was like, we're getting ready to go on the airport. We have all our stuff with us. And this little kid just like takes us and he's kind of looking at us like, are you sure you want to do this? We're about to get on the airport. So we got to play a little bit, you know, we got our faces a little bit, try not to get it so much on our clothes, like I really wanted to. But it was a good, you know, it was fine. So we get on the plane, we head over to Jaipur, we get off the airport, and then we're headed to our hotel, and we're driving through the streets of Jaipur, and the streets are just, you can't recognize them. They are just pink and green and yellow, and you see people walking down the street and they're just like head to toe covered. And I was so mad and so jealous because I really wanted to experience that, but it was like nothing I've ever seen. People in like small streets, alleyways, like no stone was left unturned. Like that, Jaipur's the pink city, but that day it was like the rainbow city because it was covered with so much color and people were like head to toe covered in color. I was so bummed that we missed a big part of it. So it's such a huge celebration and it's something that I recommend you do. If you're planning to visit India, plan your trip around Holi because you will never forget it. It is something that I will never forget, and actually the next time I go to India, I really want to go back during Holi so I can celebrate it the proper way and make sure that I'm not traveling. So basically they play colors on the streets, there's drinking, there's debauchery, there's just jolliness, there's dancing, there's like folk singing and people playing their dhols, their drums, and just like hanging out and having these little, basically a giant street party, right? There is a dark side to Holi in India too, though, right? So imagine the entire country, you're drinking and you're having a good time, and it's debauchery and it's crowded and there's parties. There has been some harassment and sexual harassment, cases of rape and things like that during Holi, because where there's fun, there's also bad people that think that like, oh, it's Holi, it's a day where I can get away with anything because you're supposed to start anew and all is forgiven. And I don't even know if it's really that, or if they're that deep, or if it's just an opportunity for someone who wants to do something bad to take advantage of someone who is vulnerable and in a crowd. And maybe because when you're playing Holi like that, like you're running around, you can get lost from the people you're with and things like that. So predators are gonna prey. So there is kind of like that dark side of Holi, but it doesn't stop people from celebrating Holi, celebrating the festival, celebrating it as a religious holiday, celebrating as a harvest. It really bonds the country together and these religions that make up the subcontinent and the diaspora together to create one experience. And it's really unique. If you know anything about India, like there's always religious wars going on, and it's to see something unique like that, it's really profound and it's really amazing to witness. Like I can't describe it to you because you have to see it to actually feel the energy and the power of it. And imagine my surprise a few years ago when this stuff came out and I saw an ad for a color run. And I look at the ad and I'm like, oh, this looks like Holi. Like, what is this? This looks like Holi. And then you look at the ad closer and there's no people of color on the ad. And there's no, mention of anything. And then you're like, I get it, like, I get it. Celebrating Holi is kind of a big deal. Think about everything that I just explained, right? And running a 5K or a 10K is also a personal goal and a big deal, but does it match up to everything I just explained? Not really. And the first time I saw that, I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to feel because, a big part of me is happy, I suppose, that there's some awareness and people are learning about my culture and learning about practices and getting more cultured in general. And I'm like, yay, woohoo. But then you look at it and it's totally appropriated. There's no people of color. There's no mention of the origins of what the idea came from. It's just literally somebody saw a picture or a Bollywood movie of the colors being thrown and said, this is a great idea. Let's do it to celebrate the end of a 5K. Sorry, not the same thing. A festival that unites an entire country and multiple religions versus you running a 5 to 10K, not the same. So, I don't know, I'm not one to get easily offended, but it doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right with me. I question it. If I'm an opinionated person. So if I can't form a solid opinion on something, then there's something wrong. You know what I mean? And a couple years ago, I had a friend at the time, and the year prior, he had taken my two best friends, Tej and Fabs, to a color festival, what was advertised as a color festival here in Sacramento. And I was supposed to attend, but I had to work, and so I couldn't attend. So the following year, he invited everybody again, and nobody could attend except for me and him. And so we went, and I took my daughter with me. I took her with me because I wanted to expose her to this part of our culture, right? I was like, oh, because she's seen it in movies, and she's like, I want to play Holi, so I took her. I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And I have to say, for something so complex, a festival that is so complex, they really did a poor job of translating it. We walk in and there's like a giant banner, and that I saw that, right? They had henna artists. They had some like Indian cultural music playing, but not a lot. It was more just like random like dance EDM type stuff. And then they had like a henna artist. I mean, my daughter got some mehndi done, and so did I, but not from a person of color. They had food trucks there, and the food trucks were serving vegetarian food. They didn't have any meat at this color festival. So everybody was serving vegetarian food, and there was Mexican food, and there was pizza, and there was something else. I didn't see any Indian food. And then the timing of it. This event took place in the fall, in September. And I'm like, it really felt like a hippie kind of color run festival. So it really felt like this sort of hippie color thing, and people are getting, they're getting high everywhere, which is fine. I'm sure that happens during Holi as well. I mean, you're getting drunk, so you're getting high in one way or the other. But it just felt like such a huge missed opportunity. I mean, if you're an event organizer out there and you're trying to do some justice to this event, which I feel like they kind of tried, try harder, man. Like, it's so easy. Like, set up the event during spring so that it actually takes place the time of year that it's supposed to take place in. Put up literature where you're actually like talking about the different meanings of Holi and where it comes from, where you're selling colors and making money off of selling colors to your festival goers. Have a sign that shows the colors and their different meanings of significance. So much could be accomplished and done in a respectful way, and it was just a giant missed opportunity. Now, granted, it's hard because I had a great time. My daughter had a great time, right? Because we're throwing colors at each other, we're running around, everybody's doing it. It's fun. But it wasn't right. It didn't, I can attend an event and have a good time with the activity, and I see the appeal. I really do see the appeal. It's fun. That's why we do it. That's why it's been done for years. But do it properly. Show a little respect to the origin. Educate people about why you are bringing this event into Sacramento, why you're bringing this event. And there's festivals like this all over the place, so I'm specifically speaking to the one that I attended in Sacramento. I don't know what other ones are like. But I just felt like, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I'm a big believer in that. I've experienced it firsthand, and anytime people say something to me like, oh, did you see what so-and-so did, and da-da-da, and if it's something that I've done already, I'm like, well, they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. That's me. That's my personality. I don't sweat the small stuff. I really don't. If it makes you happy, do it. I don't care if you did it first, I did it first. I'm sure there's some things that I imitate, and I look at it as that. It's a form of flattery. But this was just wrong, and it just felt wrong, and it's such a missed opportunity. And I look at things like yoga and the properties of manifestation and freaking golden milk lattes, and it's like, man, I just feel some type of way about this stuff. I appreciate my culture getting awareness, but I don't appreciate the bibliography being ripped out of the book and not giving sources as to where this stuff comes from, why we're doing it, why it's good for you. It's just, man, just call it a fucking healthy dude. I don't know. This is a different show. I've never really talked about a topic like this, but when I was planning for this week's show, I knew it was Holi. I myself am having a Holi party on Sunday, and I'm having it. There's only one other South Asian person attending besides me, and it's at my friend's house, and we're gonna get some colors and have a good time. I'm taking sweets, I'm taking snacks, Indian snacks, and I'm sure, I'm gonna educate them about Holi and why we celebrate it, and we're gonna have a good time. I mean, it's not that hard to educate people in an appropriate way and then let them enjoy your culture. And there's so much stuff like this. I really don't go off on tangents like this, but I mean, there's bindi wearing and Indian clothes and all this stuff, and it's just like, at what point do you give credit where credit's due? At what point do you do that? And so, I guess in conclusion, it's just like, it's not your color run, it's Holi. It's not your color festival, it's Holi. Like, Fagwa, Indo-Fijians, we call it Fagwa, Fagwa, Holi, whatever you call it, but just show some respect. It just makes me feel some type of way, and when I was planning the show, I had plenty of other topics to talk about, but I just couldn't. I really felt like I needed to share my opinion on this, and it just feels wrong. Like, I'm sorry, but, and I'm not a fan of cancel culture, but we need to cancel the color runs. We really do. If no respect is going to be shown, like, you don't need to be using that. And I don't know, part of me feels like maybe I've done that unknowingly. Maybe I've participated in events or activities that have been appropriated from another culture that I was completely unaware of. So where do you really draw the line? I mean, as you can tell, I go back and forth on this. So where do you really draw the line? I mean, do you guys have an opinion on this? If you do, please DM me or shoot me an email at timepasspodcast@gmail.com. This is a conversation that I started because it's how I feel, and it's kind of how I've always felt about this stuff. And people have asked me, how do you feel about like yoga and meditation? And like, meditation is probably the one that gets me the most, but I'm not going to dive into that. I'm not going to dive into that right now. So meditation does bother me probably the most, but the appropriation of it. But this Holi thing, it's commercialized and people are making money off of my culture and just not giving credit. And to go talk about what I talked about, right? This giant event that unites people all over the subcontinent, millions of people, and then it's like, hey, I ran a 5K, let's do this. No, man, that's not cool. That's just not how it works. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't know about this. Let me know your thoughts. Happy Holi, you guys. I hope you're celebrating in an appropriate way, and I hope if you're South Asian, you're celebrating and educating other people about it, and just have a good time. I just think that there's a way to do things, and you can do it respectfully, and I would ask any event organizers to please consider that. It doesn't make you feel good when you're from a culture and then you see your culture being appropriated and no credit's given. You guys, reach out to me. Let me know how you feel about this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think I took too soft of an approach? Do you have more of a opinion than I do? I'd love to talk about this and have some discussions around this. So look out for... I may do a clubhouse room on this later this week as well, because the discussion doesn't end here, and I'd love to hear some other opinions on this. So please shoot me a DM or shoot me an email at timepasspodcast@gmail.com, or shoot me a DM at timepass_podcast on Instagram. If you're not doing so already, please follow the show, subscribe to the show on iPodcast, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify. And if you have a second, please give me a review. I want those 5 stars. Write a review for me on iPodcast, please. I would greatly appreciate it. You guys, I hope you're having a great Holi. Whatever you do, stay authentic to you. Stay authentic in your celebrations. And I will see you next time. Bye.